Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, we'll be joined by the Pleasure Dome to discuss their upcoming EP, Liminal Space. But before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, whatever you're watching or listening. Welcome to Bobby of the Pleasure Dome to the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Absolutely
Hello.
delighted to have you on. How are you this quite sunny evening where I am?
Yeah, it's not sunny here, but it's bright and it's not raining. But yeah, I'm good. I'm doing good. I'm pint in hand. It's my first of the evening. I'm off today, but I'm just popped by where I work to do this recording because they got good internet. So
Always
yeah,
important. Good internet,
yeah.
no rain, and a pint of Guinness. So
Ah,
say
Guinness.
I'm on the water, but
Yeah.
cheers anyway.
Mm, cheers.
Yeah, so obviously exciting time for yourself. You know, the Pleasure Dome have just put out a couple of singles. You've got an EP on the way, and we're going to dig into everything that's going on now in just a moment. But before then, we're just going to rewind to September last year. Obviously, your debut album came out, Equinox,
Yeah.
and always a wonderful time for anyone to be able to put out a debut album because obviously, to get to that point to be able to do that, the hard work that's gone into that, it's always great to be recognised. Obviously, I always like when I have a chat with a band that have obviously put one out within the last 12 months because you'll probably have different feelings towards it now than you did, obviously, the excitement of putting it out. So I just wondered, what was that whole experience like for you getting that out? What are your thoughts of the album now?
It was a grueling time. Like obviously proud to have done it, but it wasn't necessarily enjoyable. um, we recorded it like last February, and then had a summer of sort of putting things together and played a couple of festivals, that kind of thing. And then, by the time September came around for it to come out, we'd never sat on a recording that long before. Um, so it was a really unusual thing where this music had been there for so, like, usually we'd record something, put it out within a month, and then all of a sudden we've waited 9 months, um, which was, yeah, I know a lot of bands will sit on things for like over a
Mm.
year, and that's like a normal thing, but for me it wasn't normal. But yeah, it's good to get it out there. And but it was a difficult time. Like our drummer quit like the week before the album came out, and it was like it's very turbulent time. And then we did our tour. I'm happy about the album, but this EP was definitely to sort of follow up on, I don't know, to re-establish the band, maybe, like, even though it's so quick. I mean, from the outside it's like we've released, I think I worked out the other day, it's like we'll have had 20 songs come out in 9 months, which is ridiculous, really. Um, but yeah, inside it's been a very bizarre 18 months, and it's even with this EP, it's come with its own uh, difficulties of our bassist leaving. Um, we've changed drummers again. It's just been, yeah. I'm glad to have it coming up and have it as a sort of a line in the sand. I feel like the whole reason the EP is called Liminal Space was because I could see this was just going to be such a transitionary moment between our first album and hopefully our second album. Um, so yeah, I'm trepidatious. I'm
Mm.
happy, but I'm also like I won't listen to it. Like I haven't listened to it. I'm just it's almost a bit painful because of the change that the band's been going through. But yeah, debut record, super proud of it because that had been sort of the work of the band leading up to that point. Since then, it's just, yeah, it's all been a bit all over the place, a bit crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've definitely observed this. Yeah, been a rather tumultuous time, both obviously, for yourself from a personal standpoint as well as a professional standpoint, and obviously,
Mm.
a lot of that would have gone into the writing of Liminal Space. So, for you, is creativity a form of catharsis?
Yeah, I mean, I think uh, it it is all like there's always an emotion that goes into it. For me personally, um, it has become more about, like, the earlier days of the band was a lot of political stuff, and like I was sort of living in Bristol, like really close to things happening in lockdown, like the Colston statue coming down. I was at the protest, and like it like fed into the music, this sort of political standpoint. But I realised that I'm preaching to the converted. I was talking about my politics and like, oh, can you believe this is what the government's like? And everyone's like, yeah. And then you're like, wait. And it didn't feel like that's what I listen to music for. I think it's something that was very important in my life, but I think we all know the world's a little bit messed up. And I don't know, I made the change of, well, I'm going to write about things that people might personally identify with in terms of them looking at themselves, like depression or drug use or relationships, like love, hate, all these things. It just took change deliberately to sort of write more about painful moments or like moments that were personal rather than commentating on the world. So yeah, there isn't a catharsis in it, but it doesn't like help me in any way. Like it may teach me things about myself, but it doesn't make the things go away. It's like, if anything, when you're singing about a painful moment in your life, night after night, it's almost not nice because you're like picking at the wound all the time. But yeah, it's cathartic, but it's not. I'm not doing it to sort of try and get over those things. I just choose that subject matter to sort of hopefully give something to the audience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And credit to yourself for being brave enough to obviously write about the personal experiences, because it is quite a change to go from obviously a political standpoint where, like you say, everyone's in it together, to now I'm writing about things I've experienced, things I've gone through, and with that, does there come a kind of a sense of vulnerability? Are you sort of not worried, but sort of
Yeah, I mean,
interested
there's
how it'd
loads
be
of those.
received. Yeah.
Yeah, loads of those moments. I mean, I think the first time I'd ever really appreciated the level of the message you put into your stuff, like we released a song in like 2021, I think, called Pretty Picture, which was about a relationship. And I'd had a song about a relationship before, but it's more like shrouded, whereas this was literally about a person very explicitly talking about this person, sort of thing. And it was played like on radio, like around the world, and like we had really good press. It got reviewed by some really big it was like in like Line of Best Fit had it as like the song of the day. Like it did really well for us. And then all of a sudden there's like people in like Australia, there was a radio station in Israel playing. There's this like it's being played everywhere and talked about all over the place for like a week or something, like but then the thing that was struck me was like, oh my god, like my message is all of a sudden being listened to by all these people, and we'd never had sort of that kind of response from a song before. And you don't write a song thinking, oh, there's going to be someone in Australia talking about this song to you, or like asking you questions about it, or analyzing it and giving their opinion. And then from then, it's like I've had an awareness of what I do has got it's open to criticism from a lot of different people, but it just and it did scare me, and it like at first, but then I sort of learned that, well, I need to use that voice to like give an important message, and sometimes it is scary, like there's certain songs that I've got that I just can't I've not got to the point where I feel like I can talk about it publicly. Like when I talk about something in a song publicly, it's because I don't mind. So I've done it like, in my head, I've got there. But there's certain things that I've gone through in my life where it's like I've got songs about it and I've got it out in some way, but I'm not because your family hear it, like your nan hears it.
Yeah.
like even like talking about drugs, it's like my mum I've been quite open with about my drug use and problems and stuff, and like there's a song we got on our first record called What a Shame Cocaine, and she's like, oh, it's my favorite song, that one. What's it called? What a Shame. Yeah, I love What a Shame. And she won't say cocaine, but so there is an awareness that like, well, if I sing like this, my mum or my nan and anyone in my family will know about it. And that's my now that's like that's the worst bit about it all, because it's like, as I go more personal and talk about these more personal things, I don't really care now about like a radio station in anywhere. Like I don't care like it being talked about, but I think it's like talking to my family about stuff I've not talked to them about, and then here's a song about, you know. So yeah, I'm still getting to that, but I feel like I'm getting the strength. But I do feel like there are some songs where I really want to put those messages out there for people. But yeah, the family is the main. My nan and my mum, basically. Not my granddad, but my granddad just wouldn't talk to me about stuff. Whereas my nan, yeah. So yeah, those are the things where it's like the vulnerabilities become. Yeah, I've come to terms with it, but yeah, it has been a process of that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. And just yeah, I say again, brave of you to be able to do that and put it out there to the world. Because it's one thing to, you know, write a diary, for example, that you know, oh, I'm going to see this. I'm putting my inner sort of thoughts onto that. But then it's a completely different thing to say, right, everyone, you know, read my diary, because it's such a personal
Yeah.
thing. So obviously, yeah, is it a really brave act in doing it? So obviously, credit to yourself for doing that.
Cheers. Well, I think there's a YouTuber that I've followed for like for maybe like 10 years or something, called Andrew Hales. He's got LAHWF. He does like pranks, but he become quite emotional with talking about these things. And one of the things he says that always I think of is, when it comes to talking about my life, is like, no one cares about your life more than you do. So if I'm like, well, I'll say it, like, because you think like, oh, what will people think? It's like, nobody cares. Nobody cares as much as I do about it. And if I'm not bothered, then I'm like, well, you know, it may change how people see you. And I think like there was a single release we did, and I'm naked in it. Like I've got I'm you know, naked, and I was like so worried about it, and like because I sent them on record label, like they were like, we need a single cover. And I was like, shit, I've not done one. I've like really let it slide, and then had this picture on my phone, and then did like almost like a joke. I did it like 4 a.m. I was drunk after work. I had to come home, and I just sent it through. And then in the morning, I looked at my phone, and on the lock screen, like with the preview messages, it had a message off Oliver at the record label that was like, I love it, it's perfect. And then I was like, oh my God, I remembered what I've done. And then I had about 3 months then of like having to tell my friends. I was like, I'm like naked on the cover. And then they were all like, everyone's been like, oh, and I was like, it just got more and more worse, and like just didn't like thought about it so much. And then the song came out, and like no one mentioned it. No one said a word. Like no one that reviewed it said about the cover. People at gigs were like, oh, well done for like someone like a few people were like saying well done for like exposing the vulnerable, because it's quite a vulnerable picture, and the song is about an argument that had with me and I lived with my dad for like a couple of years in my teens, and we weren't close, and then we had an argument, and it's like it was like that message when I wrote that song was like the most deep that I'd gone in talking about my personal life, and it just felt like that image went well together. So I don't know, yeah. But when the song came out and no one said anything, I was like, what was the problem then? And I think, I learned then more than ever, like, yeah, nobody cares. So like, I think now when it comes to this, as I said, the final like hurdle, I guess, is family, just things that they don't know that I've kept from them because it's painful to talk about things. They don't want to hear stuff, you know, they don't want to hear about their firstborn like going through these things. But I think it is also important from speaking to like people listen to our music and have like thanked us for talking about certain things. There's certain messages where I'm like, well, people need that support. Like people need to be able to listen to a song to feel like, well, it's okay if that's happened, because you know, like, yeah, I'm just rambling on now.
No, but you make a really valid point, because I think in life we all dread, you know, certain activities or social scenarios to be in, and actually once you've gone through it, you sort of walk away from it going, wasn't that bad, was it? Actually, I was
Yeah,
worrying about that for ages, but no, it was all right, you know. So
it's never that bad.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really valid point, and obviously, yeah, the EP is out on May 10th. So obviously,
Yeah.
listeners definitely need to prepare for that. Get into it, wherever you're going to listen or buy a physical copy, because there is a couple of different physical variants going to be out, which
Yeah.
both look beautiful. There's a sky blue marble and a neon pink vinyl of it. So, I mean, how
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
is it for you in 2024, to still be able to put out a physical product?
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, it's I've never had a record put out before this band, so I'm not even used to it myself, to be honest. Yeah, like the physical side of it, like all the artwork I do, like the album, I did the artwork and designed the sleeves and all that sort of stuff. And like with this record, I've like really like gone further than what I did on the last one. Like the cover, um, the back cover's like a picture, and there's a back cover obviously on the album. But like the EP, I just felt like I realized it's another message that you can put into the record, and the sleeve is got there's a classic lyric sheet which I think is just so important. I'm always so annoyed when I get an album and then there's like no lyrics. I'm like, it's like the best bit. But yeah, I'm proud of this one, and yeah, the record label decided to do a limited run of the pink vinyls. There's only going to be 100 of them. The marble blue one I think is so cool, and that's like the main record, which I think looks great. But yeah, the pink neon I'm excited by that. That was their idea, and obviously, it's only available through them. I think we'll be able to sell it on our merch table as well, but it won't be in the shops. So it's cool. It's a cool package. There's a lot of bits to like. I'm always a fan of like the albums where there's like stuff where like the White Album. I don't know if you've ever looked at the ins.
Yeah.
Like there's so many bits you can like spend ages over, and it just gives another texture, like another dimension to the music, really, which I think it's always been really important. So to be able to do a record now is I'm so like I feel so lucky to be able to be in this position, really. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of that experience is lost in the digital streaming age, and I'm old enough that I remember physically walking down to a record shop and actually, picking up a record and then walking home with it, and then, like you say, open the package, read the lyrics, look at all the little sort of Easter eggs on the packaging, and go, oh, this is brilliant, and it's such a wonderful
It's
experience.
so good. I think that's something that we thought with digital. It's like, oh, but you can have pictures on your screen that go along with it. It's like, I think that's why vinyl came back, because it's the grandest form of music, really. I think in terms of a physical format, like the quality of audio on vinyl is amazing, and then you've got like just the size factor of like having like a 12-inch vinyl sleeve. Yeah, it's brilliant. So I'm really proud to be able to. I feel really lucky, rather, to be able to like make these things to go along with it. I haven't seen it myself. I mean, it's currently in transit from Germany, so I'm like waiting for it to come through. So I'm excited to have a look at it. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. The unboxing will be fantastic for you. And two of the songs that have obviously come out so far, we just want to quickly delve into. So the first one that came out was the Duke Part 2, Friends and Enemies. I always think, a bit like I said earlier, a debut album is that's a really sort of important step. But with any release that's coming out, albums, EPs, etc., I always think the first piece of music, the first single, was a real statement of what is to follow. So I'm always intrigued and just like to ask you, what about that song made you pick it to be that statement?
Well, it's something since with our second single. It's like, oh, should we put that out first? Because it turned a lot of people off. We lost followers on Spotify for the first time ever. Like,
Wow.
we always have increased, and we lost like about 100 followers like over the first 2 days of the song now, which may be a coincidence, but it doesn't feel like it is. Essentially, the Duke Part 2, Friends and Enemies, it's part of it. It's a two-part song, which on the EP both parts are there, but the intro is like super long. So part 2 is like what was chosen to be the single. I just realized with the album, I'd had the criticism of not melodic, or like the guitar was very like just two-dimensional, or like it just felt like. And personally, I could see that like there's no melodic guitar parts, there's no melodic vocals. So I was like, right, well, I'm gonna write a song that is melodic. And I was listening to King Cruel's new album, and there's a song on there called Flimsier, and it's this amazing slow arpeggiated guitar, and I'd just became obsessed with it. And this kind of came from jamming around the feeling that gave me, like. So yeah, the reason I wanted to put this out is because I'd always wanted to write stuff like this and have the band be melodic and that kind of thing. And I didn't want it to be seen as like post-punk or punk band. I feel like this was something different, because I've never intended to be like that either. I just think if you have a guitar in a band now, you're called post-punk. But
especially from
yeah,
Bristol, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think from anywhere though, I can see the post-punk influence in a lot of music. I don't know, the Libertines, when they first came out, they were called post-punk by everyone, and now they're just called indie. So I reckon like in like 20 years, Idols will be called indie. It won't be called punk or post-punk. But yeah, it's a certain energy, and I understand that. I think I've come, because I've always been quite anti the use of punk. It's like punk is a political musical movement happened in the late 70s for me. I remember like seeing Blink-182 and people calling those, they were called punk at the time, and then it became pop punk. Like, it wasn't punk, and punk shouldn't be anywhere near it. And I think, but I understand as I've got older and I've been called punk so many times. I understand that it's like an energy maybe, and maybe it's an attitude, like the fact that you're not too bothered about things being rough around the edges. It's more like an energy. Maybe that's what punk is, but for me, punk was a political thing. But yeah, the Duke was out there to be like, look, we can do this. We can do this sort of like indie Britpop, grungy sound, and have melody. It was just sort of show the band had grown, I think, from the album.
Which is always really important, and I agree. Yeah, punk is a word that's transcended a musical genre, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I actually, to be honest, I hate having to label everything. We don't do it for pop music. Like we try and avoid a lot of the stereotypes of this is post punk, this is indie, whatever. Because I mean, for me, the genre of the Pleasure Dome is the Pleasure Dome. It doesn't matter what you're playing, whether it's more melodic, heavy, or whatever. It's what your sound is. So
it's just a sound. I think that's what. There's a lot of bands that will try and emulate a sound, and as I do, everyone has inspirations. But I definitely feel like there's bands that are trying to sound like a genre, whereas like with our band, like if you were to listen through everything, there's so many different sounds, and like I just think that, as you say, like a band that can go beyond genre. I think that like some bands will just have one song over and over and over again. I think, but I don't know. For me, like you listen to like the Clash, I know they're considered a punk band, but there's loads of their songs that aren't punk songs. It's just the Clash, like, or the Beatles. They've got so many different styles. I understand that like a band can have a sound, but yeah, I agree. Like I think genre is frustrating. I'm always jealous of a band when they're able to say we're such and such, and then it's like, oh, you actually are. But yeah, I don't know myself that well.
Yeah, no, it's one of the peculiar things of music in 2024. Everything has to have a label, but no, let's say, obviously, great song, the Duke Part 2. Listeners definitely need to go and check it out. It is, a fantastic introduction to the record, and something a little different. Obviously, is the second single. So Your Fucking Smile is the name of the song. Great name, great name. So what can you tell us about that song?
Again, that was like another reaction to the album of like we didn't have any songs that were really really fast, and we didn't have any songs, in my opinion, that were really really heavy. So I thought, well, I'm going to write something that's really really fast and really really heavy. And the song itself is it's about a relationship, or not a relationship with someone, and they had a really good smile, but it didn't go well, but we're still friends. But yeah, it was just about that. I think the meaning of a song, starts out as like you take a moment and then you start to write about it, but then people see this wider picture of, it's like almost like you take like a speck and then you magnify it in the song. And I think it sounds like that relationship could have been horrendous and awful, and it's like so angry, when really it's like that song was written about almost like it's one thought. And I think it sounds worse than it is. I got asked in an interview recently about, do they know about this song and all this sort of stuff, and it's like yeah, I think they do. But like I think, yeah, it's almost like an embellished poetic license. I think I take a moment and then just like write, yeah, all this sort of stuff. It sounds worse than it does because it's quite an abrasive song. But yeah, it wasn't that bad. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, as many things don't, but it is a fantastic song, and it obviously will have, create different meanings for different people as they listen to it. That's the joy of music. Yeah, once it's out there, it becomes something different for everyone. But obviously something that helps along those lines is a video. So I'm a massive music video geek. Always talk about them on this podcast, and
Okay.
I obviously checked out. You've got a video out there for the single, which is a unique one for sure. But
Nice.
again, just like I think it fits the song really well. It works
Cheers.
definitely. So how did you come up with the concept for the video and obviously put it into practice?
I made it the day before the song came out.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, it was, so there's a song on our first album called Love Is Dead, which was a B-side, it was a double A side 2 song. And I made this music video. I'd found some Soviet funeral footage and edited. It's like a 2-hour funeral film of Brezhnev's funeral. I edited it down to 3 minutes, and he was meant to symbolize love, and love is dead, blah blah blah. So I had this Soviet found footage thing in my head, because originally the Love Is Dead videos, I was going to get loads and loads of different things and then put them together like copyright free archive found footage stuff. So I was scrapping around for a music video, and I had always had this in the back of my mind where I was like, I'm going to make an edit of something. And then and then I had a completely different idea, and I was like, the video, it was getting pushed and pushed back, and then I kept saying to our press, I was like, agent, I was like, I've got it, it's coming, and then originally I had an idea to sort of do Subterranean Homesick Blues, writing the lyrics and dropping them, which also Idols did in one of their videos for Idols channel, which is like one of my favorite songs of theirs. And I thought, I'll just do that, easy, one take. And I did it, and it looked awful. And I had a hat on and a feather boa, and it was just horrendous. So the night before the song came out, I thought, right, I'm just going to find some Soviet footage about Smiles. And then I went and searched through archives, and then found this like animation. It's like an hour long, which is the bulk of it, which seems to be, it was some sort of Soviet video where it's not in the video itself, but like I cut all the bits out where like the I don't know what they were called, the leader, the president, or whatever, the leader of Russia at that time, the Soviet leader. He's a cartoon character guiding these like common people through a history of Russian animation. Bizarre video. And then I found I just went on a bit of a hunt for stuff, and then I found a 1950s information video for children, educational video on how to date. And then I found a 80s documentary on UK goth culture from 1984. And then I found, what was the other one? Anyway, I cut them together, and yeah, that's the video basically. But it was a found footage last minute thing, and I love editing so much. So I think once I'd found some cool clips, I was able to bring it together and make it that chaotic thing. And there's 2 versions. So there's the censored version, which is called Your Perfect Smile, and then there's the which I added a burlesque dancer because it was censored. I thought, well, I'll put a naughty lady in it. And then in the clean version, is it the clean version? Well, I forget which way around it is, but there's two versions, and then one of the versions has a sneak preview of the next song on the EP, like at the end, just the first verse, which uses the long form of like how to make a phone call with a girl, and it's that was the video. I'm glad you watched it. I was proud of it, even though it was like a last minute thing. I was really pleased that came out, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm really pleased you did it, Bobby. Absolutely, because I love music videos, and a lot of bands don't bother these days. So it's
yeah, they're tough. I do all the first record and this record. I did all the music. No, that's not true. Not all the music videos myself. I was in them all, but yeah, I had a big input on the videos. A couple of the videos were done with friends. I love the music video. It's always been a format that, again, like the record, it's like it's another texture to the music. And I don't know, like I don't really watch TV too much, but I'll watch music videos and I'll watch like music related stuff. So it's something I've got a personal interest in. So yeah, even though this time I left it particularly late, I just had a lot on. But it's always been an important thing. Yeah.
Well, sometimes the best art is created in a short period of time like that, and it certainly works well. So, fantastic. And listeners need to check it out. There'll be a link in the bio that will obviously take you everywhere. It will take you to obviously the video. It will take you to pre-ordering the physical copies. It will also take you to some ticket links. So you've got a couple of shows coming up. Obviously, the EP's out on the 10th of May, and you've got shows on the 16th and 17th in London and Bristol.
Not quite.
No?
So the London gig has been cancelled, unfortunately. We just sold no tickets in 6 weeks, and then our promoter decided not to go ahead. But they hadn't. It's bad. We've never had good luck with London. Like London's always been a tricky one. Like we do really well in Europe, Netherlands, France. We've been on tour in Belgium once and did well. London, strange. I don't know what it is, but so that gig's not happening, but the Bristol gig is happening. But that is going ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, listeners then need to head to Bristol and check out these songs live because they deserve to be heard live. Absolutely. And I mean, obviously, it's a sad state of affairs. The show's not going to be going ahead, but it is it shows listeners really. I always talk on this podcast, and there's actually a segment that we'll finish on in a minute about the pitfalls of the industry. Listeners don't realize how tough it is for a band to go out and play. They think, oh, why aren't you playing, just up the road from me? Come on, you should be playing. It's actually really hard for bands to get shows booked, to get them to go ahead. It's a tough climate out there. And obviously, case in point, your London show.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many variables of like just being in a band with like three people, their lives. You've got to orchestrate each of those lives, and then you've got to then find a driver, and then like all these different variables. There's so many things that go into it, but I think when it comes down to it, it's having these three people that are able to operate together. That's hard enough in itself. So there is a lot that goes into it. I mean, it's unfortunate, like with the London gig, but I just think the promoter wasn't particularly good. Like our agent, I think it sort of like cut us adrift a little bit, and I think it had been an afterthought almost that this gig was happening. But I think it comes at the end of like a very difficult like time of touring where we'd gigged so much and gone on like big European, like UK tours from the start of 2023 right the way through to our album tour at the end of last year, and just got in a tremendous amount of debt basically. Off our album tour, we went on tour with October Drift in April. That was a debt, like that was like hundreds of pounds. We went on our album tour around the UK and Europe, and then came back with over £1,000 worth of debt. And then we went to France like a couple of weeks ago, and it cost us just 450 quid of debt. Like we're in debt by that. Like so, live. Even when we're like selling tickets and getting people in venues, it's like it's a huge loss. And I think I mean, there was an article that came out in the Guardian. I don't know if you saw that. It was like shared around everywhere, and I was reading it. It's just like, yeah, lives. It's such a strange thing because it is almost a loss leader to sell records because you don't make any
Yeah.
money on it. But when I had an interview a couple of days ago, and they asked about what your favorite moments were in the band, and everything that came to mind immediately was about live.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's just a running loss. Like you break even at best. Like sometimes you're lucky you come home with something in your pocket, but very rarely. But that interaction of being able to see people like freak out and like crowd surf and have a mosh pit, all that kind of thing, it's like invaluable. Like seeing people in the crowd smiling, they're the special moments. So yeah, I mean, whether there's a price to pay for that as a band, I don't know, but it is
Yeah.
frustrating, and it's very difficult because there's not an infinite pot of money. Like I'm a bartender, like as a day job,
No.
like I don't have a load of money to put into it. So yeah, it's something I'm thinking about at the moment, like what it all means. I think the most important thing is a record because that's there forever. I think that's what I want to focus on, certainly for the next 12 months. It's like the next album I'm making that really good and not trying to break my neck touring in a van around all over the place to get into debt.
Yeah.
It doesn't make as much sense. Whereas you might play like special shows and like, you know, have people queuing to get in and people's crowd surfing. It's great. And then you come back at the end of it all 2-3 weeks later, and then you're like, we're in debt. We got paid back £1,000 to our tour manager, or we've got to pay our agent hundreds of pounds of fees and like all this sort of stuff. The thing that's there forever is the record, and like I've not seen any of my favorite bands live. I don't think like my favorite bands like Led Zeppelin, Beatles, Nirvana.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of them live, but the records I've rinsed. So I think all the stress that we've had with our first album and this EP of like we've got to go on tour, then we've got to do a record, and then we've got to do this, the record, and we've got to do it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, let's just make music and then make that really good. And then if people want to come and watch it live further down the line, fine. But I think there's been too much of like it like you tire yourself out on the road and then you can't produce stuff where, yeah, I think primarily I'm a musician and the studio is where I feel like I can do the best work because it's there forever. You put more time into it, and the live like sphere is a moment which is special and powerful, but it's gone. And there are special gigs, but the albums are where like everyone has classic albums. No, it's a classic gig, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, the albums will last forever. Yeah, the gigs, fantastic experience, as you say. But yeah, absolutely, the current climate is tough, and that's why I always on this podcast encourage listeners. You know, again, we've touched on it. There's physical copies of the EP. It's selling merch, you know, t-shirts and albums where you know a band can try and make up some of them losses. It's not even really to make a profit, is it? It is just literally to recoup what you've put on it. But yeah, if you can afford it, listeners, click through the links and absolutely, you know, always I
If you
encourage
want it,
that.
I mean, I think like again with like I'm really bad. Like I don't have like many like Beatles. Not that Beatles need it. Like I mean, I've got Beatles records, I've got Nirvana records, I've got Led Zeppelin records, but like I definitely have not paid a lot. Like I don't mind people not buying merch. Like I don't really. All I care about is if people are listening to it. I don't care. Like it's like that's. I was like the generation of illegal downloads, and like
Yeah.
there was no Spotify. Like, but I had tens of thousands of songs. I hadn't paid for a single one of them, but I listened to them so much and obsessed over them. And I mean, I don't know if and I think different musicians would have different opinions, but for
Yeah.
me, people are listening to it. I couldn't care less. Like, which is maybe why I'm in loads of debt. I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, obviously that conversation leads us nicely on to the final topic we always have. It's called Magic Wand. It's something I brought in maybe about a year ago because we kept having these types of conversations on this podcast. So we're going to go into fantasy land. I'm going to give you a magic wand, and with that magic wand, you can change one thing about the music industry, but one thing only. And that's tough because there's so much that needs to change. But Bobby, with that wand, what would you change today?
Well, I mean, a big dose of socialism. I think, just generally, I think if if everyone earned the same, like I understand that there's executives that make decisions, and there's a big hierarchy and a pyramid, but like I don't know. I talked to my nan about this, and I say about like how like why in the government isn't the politicians that are in charge of education experts? They're just a
Yeah.
politician that like, and she's like, oh well, that's utopia, Robert. And it's like, well, then have that, please. So I think if I was to do my wand, I'd make everything a utopia.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good one. And I could not agree more. Exactly. Why is the education minister not an expert in education? Why is the health minister not an expert in obviously health? Yeah. Well,
That's the
yeah.
person you want in charge. It's crazy. And then have a board of like scientists, or like Theresa May was the educational secretary, and then she was the environmental secretary. So she went from children to trees.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not an expert on either of them. And yet she managed to push all those things through and try to sell the woodland and change all that. It's just mad. It's mad. So yeah, I would make everything a utopia with my wand.
Yeah, well, let's hope that one day that one becomes real and we end up there. But I'll tell you, this has been fantastic. It's been so great talking to you, Bobby, about obviously everything that's going on. Listeners, I say, hit them links in the bio and see what you can do. Listen to the EP, obviously, is the main one coming up. And obviously, yeah, we always like to throw the final message back to the guests. What would be your final message today?
Just to be happy with everything if you can.
Yeah, another very, very good final message. Thank you so much, Bobby, for joining us on the podcast.
Cheers, thanks for having us.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with the Pleasure Dome. Do make sure you check out their new EP, Liminal Space, out on May the 10th. And of course, follow the band across social media to stay up to date with everything coming from them. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.